Buffalo Bill, Buffalo Todd, Buffalo Tim, Buffalo Burger, huh? Oh, Buffalo Trace. What's up, interwebs? I'm Connor. This is Sorta, the show about drinking. What's up, interwebs? I'm Connor, and this is Sorta. What's up, interwebs? I'm Connor. This is Sorta, a show about drinking alcohol and exploring it inside and out. And today we're talking whiskey. More specifically, bourbon. Not all bourbon, because maybe we'll do that later, but today we're talking about Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace, Buffalo Trace. Buffalo, 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 Buffalo. Buffalo, 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 Buffalo. Real sentence. Look it up. So, the Buffalo Trace Distillery dates way back. It's actually kind of like a huge part of like American history. I wish that all of my history books in school could have just been related to how whiskey was made. If you would have told me what the whiskey makers were doing when all this other stuff would happen, maybe I'd be more interested. Or maybe not, because I didn't care that much about whiskey when I was younger. Who knows? Point is, over 200 years of Buffalo Trace Distillery, going back to when it was the George T. Stagg Distillery. It's had a bunch of different owners, head distillers, master distillers, and just is a lot. They had a distillery burned down, then it was rebuilt, and it became the George Dickel facility now. And then they rebranded from the George T. Stagg facility, George T. Stagg Distillery. In 1999, they became the Buffalo Trace Distillery and decided to release the Buffalo Trace Bourbon. I heard that, it doesn't say on their website, but I heard through word of mouth that for a little while they didn't have a Buffalo Trace product, but it was the Buffalo Trace Distillery. And then they were like, you know what? Let's make a Buffalo Trace product so we could have Buffalo Trace. They did it, and we're talking about it today. So Buffalo Trace is a bourbon. That means that it's at least 40. Yeah, it's at least 40% corn, because it has to be a minimum of 51% corn to legally be called bourbon. They don't give a mash bill on their website, but the master distiller said they add a little rye to it, which makes me think that it's not a high rye bourbon, and also a little malt. So it's a 3-grain bourbon. You got your corn, you got your rye, you got your malt, which is barley, malted barley. They pretty much are just using that for germination. It helps with the distilling process. Most grain whiskeys, in fact, I'm pretty sure that all grain whiskeys have at least a little bit of barley in them to help with the germination and the distillation process. A lot of people see Buffalo Trace as a quintessential bourbon, the representation itself of just what bourbon really is, without being too watered down or overly extravagant. This is just like, this is what bourbon is, and this is what you should expect from bourbon. So I'm going to put some in my mouth and find out if that's really how I feel about it. All right, so I'm getting, like I said, dusty corn, a little bit of like corn syrup, candy corn. I was getting a little bit of like red apple in there. Some brown sugar caramel. Yeah, definitely a little bit of that baking spice. I was hoping to get a little more, maybe like a cherry. I don't get so much like cherry and vanilla, which is things that I like from bourbon. I mean, I like all bourbon. I like the heavier, brown sugar, spicy bourbons, but I also like a little bit of cherry and vanilla sometimes, A little bit of oak. A little bit of like apple juice. There's apple juice in there. This is Buffalo Trace apple juice. What do you know? Cinnamon, brown sugar, caramel. Actually is a little herbal. Not very. And it doesn't feel flat. Like it's not like it's not a very expensive bourbon, and sometimes when you get something that's inexpensive, it's a little bit of a wash on the palate, but it follows through all the way. It makes it to the end. It finishes with a little bit of the wood tannins, a little bit of that bitterness there. It hits you with the cinnamon and brown sugar, caramel, all that like sweet, delicious low tones. And it's 45% alcohol. It's not killing you. It's not fighting you. It's not fighting me. Someone who is maybe new to whiskey, this might be a little bit harder on. Yeah, there is a little bit of like a leafy earthiness, not like rotten vegetation, but like maybe like a mint leaf, not like the cooling mint, but that a little bit of like grassy thread it's dancing around in there. Nose didn't change much for me after drinking it. Solid. I can see why so many people like this. For those of you who can get your hands on it, it's good for an inexpensive bourbon. It's great. All the vanilla, the caramel, the brown sugar, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of herbalness. There isn't anything wild or crazy going on, but it's solid all the way through. It follows you along the way. It's just really good whiskey. That's end of the day, it's a good bourbon. The reason I say if you can get your hands on it, there are certain areas that Buffalo Trace is, for some reason, very difficult to get your hands on. Where I live, it's pretty accessible. Not everybody carries it, but if you have a decent liquor store in your, there's a million liquor stores where I live. You could just go to the next one over and they'll probably have it. But I've heard from a lot of people that it is difficult to find Buffalo Trace where they are, and if you're just looking for a nice, pleasurable little sweet treat at the end of the night, I'm sorry, because you're not getting it out of this, because you can't find it. But if you can find it, give it a shot, because it's good. It's a solid bourbon. You're getting everything you want from it. And that's really all I got to say about it. Buffalo Trace, thumbs up. If you thumbs up me, I thumbs up you. Then we can do the subscribe, the bell ringing. We can do the thing where we recycle. And we're nice to each other. But that doesn't happen very often. But, until next time, bye.